Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Matthijs. He is the co-founder of Nexera. He has earlier worked with AllianceBlock as well. And Nexera is at the forefront of financial innovation. They are creating an infrastructure layer which seamlessly incorporates blockchain technology, enabling both on-chain and off-chain operations. It essentially works as a layer for data processing, and it is working on the infra side. This conversation was very, very interesting because just owing to his experience, I think he brings forward a brilliant insights. And Nexera Foundation is doing a bunch of really cool stuff, which is going to increase the ambit of the ecosystem as a whole. So this was a very, very cool conversation, and I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Matt. How are you doing today?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for having me. Hope you're doing fine as well.
Thank you so much for asking earlier. And yeah, I'm doing wonderfully well. Thank you so much. So for our listeners, can you tell us a little about your background and how you got into Web3?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a background in software development. Firstly, I've started software development when I was 11 years old, but professionally
Wow.
when I was 15. Yeah, I was quite young. I was always very interested in computers. Started very, very young with tinkering with computers, but when I was 11, I actually dabbled with software development and later also web development. 15 years old, I started to do it professionally, so I started asking money for it for the laboratory, and later on, I took a job at the laboratory as well. Um, I continued working in many different industries, many different technologies until I ended up at a very big company in the Netherlands, which is called PostNL. It's one of the largest employers in the Netherlands. And there I took a management position. That's where I started to lead a team of developers, then a department, then several departments, then several departments over several locations in the country. And I continue to grow. But after 9 years, I realized like the enterprise life isn't really for me. So I joined a startup which was working on various projects, but few of them had an AI component in it. And I was
Right.
massively interested in what they were doing. So I was responsible there for many different things. Like you always have in startups, like project management, product management, software development, business development. I was doing it all. I was loving it. I was like, I need to be an entrepreneur myself, like soon. And one of the projects that we were working on had a Web3 component in it. Like a client was asking, like, can we do something with Web3? That was like 2016. Ethereum was still kind of new. So I
Right.
knew about Bitcoin, but I wasn't really aware of smart contracts and stuff like that. So because of that client question, I had to dive into the world of smart contracts. I got interested in Ethereum because of it. That's when I started to read more and more. I started to become part of community, started to invest a little myself. And then suddenly, 1 year and a bit, and I saw myself in many different communities, asking questions, learning, helping others, seeing, projects fail, projects succeeds, a lot of money raised, a lot of money misplaced. And that's when
Hmm.
I met someone and we discussed like all the problems that we saw in the industry, that we figured like early 2018, like we have to do something ourselves. And that's when we built our first Web3 business together.
Wow, that's quite a journey. So, it was pretty organic for you. Like, you were working in tech already and you got introduced to Web3 because of, as you mentioned, a query by your client. So can you tell us a little about your experiences of working at AllianceBlock and how that kind of shaped your perspective on the potential of this technology?
Absolutely. So, to be clear, AllianceBlock is the first Web3 company that we founded, which was in early 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And the first and foremost goal of AllianceBlock was to create an inclusive but completely decentralized economy or ecosystem where anyone can have access to investment deals. And we wanted to create a platform where it's easy to use, where it's safe to use and very transparent to use to buy new tokens of very early stage projects. but in a way that the projects cannot really misplace funds through milestone-based financing and stuff like that. So we built that platform that went really well. We had an MPV within like 3-4 months. Then when the MVP was being tested, the market went down. That was like early 2019. I think like early 2019 was like one of the worst months, one of the worst crypto winters we've ever experienced, I think.
Right.
And so we had a platform which was technologically amazing, but there was no demand because nobody was gonna sell tokens and nobody was gonna buy tokens. So we wanted to pivot into security token offerings instead of initial coin offerings. And then we realized we need to go very hard on regulations because security token offerings is a whole another beast. You need to KYC people, do AML, and have all these different rules between different jurisdictions. So we started to go very hard on this, and then we realized like this is so hard to solve, and this is going to be more common problem in the future for others, that we have to come up with a solution for this. So that's when we still wanted to create kind of this inclusive ecosystem, but with a really strong compliant component attached to it. And to attack the traditional finance industry with it, to help them onboard into decentralized finance and in general Web3. And that's when tokenization of real world assets came into play. And organically also we grew into the data and AI kind of vertical, which may seem outlandish, but yeah, everything has an organic growth from our story.
Right. So again, I think I have used AllianceBlock initially as well. Like I had signed up, and as you mentioned, it was a fairly robust product, but you didn't find traction. So at that point, like you must have been very disheartened, right? That you made something that actually works, but probably not the right time.
That's actually a very nice question. It's disheartening in a way, but it also motivates in some weird way to keep going and find that way to make it work. And I have a couple of times that we built something that in the end we couldn't use because it wasn't the right product market fit, or maybe we were too late, or it just didn't make that much sense as we initially thought. And that's okay, I think it's not about that you 100% will be able to do what you initially envisioned, because no one will be able to do that. But is that you're able to pivot from this and find the energy to keep going, and see like kind of the failures, and maybe the failures is kind of a harsh word, but see the failures as kind of a stepping stone to reach what you eventually want to reach, or to find what you need. And that kind of mindset has always helped us get going and to get more successful every time.
Right. I think that's a beautiful perspective to have, because as a fellow entrepreneur, I feel that at times, as you said, this, failure might be a very harsh word, because, you just find out what is not working, and you use that knowledge and experience to perhaps build on something that would work eventually and help you build your vision.
Exactly. And there is a reason why many VCs, many investors would like someone to have failed before with something, because failure is like the best kind of
teacher, right?
Best kind of training and learning that you can have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Failure teaches you many things. Among them, just pure resilience, I think, is also important, like for an entrepreneur.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
So from AllianceBlock, you ventured into, you started a platform called Nuklai and Nuant, right? And how did these ventures lead to the creation of Nexera? Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so Nexera is actually simply a name change of AllianceBlock. So Nexera is AllianceBlock ecosystem with a more fresher name. Like, even though AllianceBlock as a name will always be a baby to me, because we had it since early 2018, right?
Right.
So you get kind of attached to it. But let's face
Hmm.
it, AllianceBlock is kind of a 2017, 2018 Web3 name with block in it. And it's not really from this time anymore. Nexera, it was a fitting name in the transitional phase that we were in, because Nexera stands for the next era. It's our
Hmm.
next era of DeFi and tokenization of real world assets, the next era of the space that we want to contribute to. But yeah, back to Nuklei. We started actually a project within Nexera, which was focused more around data.
Hmm.
And it was meant as an internal project to optimize some of the technologies and processes that we were working on around financial data, and we wanted to create something generic. And then while we were building this, we accidentally discovered some potential beyond that initial internal use case. So we started to test that thesis with some external companies that had a lot of data and had some issues in leveraging this data for innovation or chatbot integration, stuff like that. And it
Right.
actually worked. We actually solved a problem with a large automotive company that we were, walking around with for over a year, and we solved it like in a matter of 1 week. So we
Hmm.
saw this has merit. Like we're
Yeah.
doing something good. So let's work on this. So we started build the product kind of on the sidelines. We didn't put a lot of budget on it right from the start because it wasn't really our main focus. Our main focus was DeFi and real world assets, and not necessarily data. But we kept on building regardless, and then last year we finalized like the full vision of what we want to achieve. That's when we realized like it's so much bigger, and it deserves to be its own branding, have its own go-to-market strategy. And that's when we took it out of Nexera as Nuklei, because previously it was known as Data Tunnel,
Hmm.
and continue. And then helps because it helps us give a lot of traction right now.
Okay. Wow. Wonderful. So now, that is a separate arm, currently, which deals with data, and you have another venture as well, right? That is more DeFi focused.
Yeah. So I'm also one of the founders of Nuant,
Hmm.
and Nuant is it's more of a traditional play. So it's all about on-chain data, but
Okay.
making this data available in ways that it can be easily leveraged by, for example, crypto fund managers. Those kind of organizations, more TradFi organizations that need to act on specific patterns, the kind of quant things that they work on, but they need like reliable streams of data and be able to act in it as soon as possible. In case, for example, when black swan events happen again, they can click on one button and their portfolio is saved.
Okay.
So this is the kind of tooling and data that we offer in order to accommodate that.
Okay. So if you had to explain to a layperson what Nuance does, like perhaps in one or two lines, how would you explain it?
It's providing on-chain data in the most reliable and quickest ways for any kind of use case that you can do on top of that.
Okay. And can you tell us a little, like give us an example perhaps of a use case?
Yeah, use case is when a crypto fund manager has a lot of assets in custody for their clients, and they interact with DeFi protocols with it in order to grow the funds for the clients, right? This is
Hmm.
what they do. Then they need to be on top of their portfolio and assets to ensure that everything is going well and to be able to do the reporting well. Now imagine that, for example, when we had the Terra Luna a collapse,
Right.
we saw that there's one point when UST started to depack and then everything started to collapse. So imagine that as a crypto fund manager, you have a big exposure in that ecosystem, and you want to be aware of these kind of red flags and act on them. Act on them is like pull all the liquidity, take all your assets out of that ecosystem, and convert them to stable coins or convert them to another ecosystem. So you need data in order to find those red flags, and you need to be able to have the technology to act on that data and automatically do the actions in order to save your assets. So that's kind of the focus of what we do.
Right. So would you say that your product is more B2B facing than B2C?
100% B2B.
Right. Because I think as a solution, it would make more sense, as you said, for portfolio managers. And, because this is dealing with large quantities of data, and this is an entire infrastructure is basically data driven. And I understand now that, all of these ventures that you're working with, they are all interconnected in a way, right? It's the same ecosystem.
It's the ecosystem, exactly. They all play a role because Nexera has a big TradFi focus, but on the tokenization part. But there is a point where they need data in order to fully fulfill their use case, and that's when they go to Nuant. And if they want to do the tokenization compliantly, we bring Nexera ID, which we have as well. And then, in order to leverage that data, in order to use that data for collaboration, monetization, or AI development, we bring in Nuklai. So we have that ecosystem where we can, on many use cases, collaborate together and do end-to-end use cases for clients.
Right. Can you tell us a little more about the AI aspect in your product and how AI is helping you make it better?
Yeah, now we're getting to the exciting part. So, so with Nuklai, we are building an infrastructure for everything around data. And why do we do that? Because if you look at AI, what's the most important thing to make AI work? It's data.
Right.
Sometimes people say like data is the new oil, right? Because it's so valuable. But I want to contest that and say that data is really already the new oxygen, because without it, like we will not be able to live normally anymore. Because data, it's everywhere. Like data is everywhere and it's everything. We as an individual, we generate data throughout the whole day by using our phone, by using social media, but also if we take public transport, we're generating data somewhere on some IoT device. While driving a car, we are generating tons of data. Most of that data, gets lost somewhere in the car. But we are generating a lot of data, and the data is used for something. So data is extremely important, and without a lot of data, AI cannot work well. And we already see that kind of limitations with LLMs like ChatGPT. They still need a massive more amount of data in order to avoid the hallucinations that we so often still see with LLMs. They cannot be factual. So there is a massive for structured data. And you cannot simply say like, oh, I'm a company, I have a lot of data. So I will throw it into an AI and have something cool. Like there are a lot of steps in order to get there. First, you need to this data interoperable, so you can make combinations of different data, and you also need to contextualize this data, like through labeling or annotating it, so that the AI understands the context of that data and how to interpret the different kind of data that it will be fed. So we created end-to-end infrastructure that helps organizations that have data which is all over the place, and to bring that together in a generic way very easily, then to allow the tools to use to deeply contextualize the data, and then with the distributed network of different clusters like GPU power, but also the more the other services around data transformation, data ingestion, data pipeline execution, all these kind of different distributed services on the network that they can leverage in order to really from end to end, from data to a functioning AI model, to be able to do all those steps, which is where normally other organizations, other Web3 projects are focusing more on the end thing. already assuming that data is already high quality and it exists, and they just focus on, I don't know, an LLM integration and have a nice chat interface, and that's it. And we really focus on everything on before, assuming that anyone can create an AI model on top of that high quality data.
Wow, that's wonderful. So is this open source in any way? Because you mentioned that anybody can perhaps create on top of the data infra that you have.
Yeah, so the technology is largely open source. So we are building a layer one network that's open source. The early testnet of that is live right now.
Okay.
And the data itself, it depends. Like we have, for example, we are putting some focus on what we call reference data. Reference data is just information of the universe. Like it's everything around us. It's things that just are. It's not data that's owned by anyone. Like the colors of a flag, country codes, currencies of countries, like all this kind of information that doesn't really change a lot. That's the reference data. That's available for free, and for anyone to use and to integrate with their business data, for example. And when it comes to business data, it depends largely whether an organization wants to sell that data to others or make it available for free. That depends on a case-by-case basis, of course.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing like that basic overview. This would give our listeners a very good idea about what you're building. Now, what is perhaps the next big milestone for you guys? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so I think two things. Our most important milestone is to get our layer one network to mainnet.
Right.
I think that's for many layer one projects, that's the case, of course. For us, even more so because we're not just cloning an existing layer one and like an Ethereum chain and create another EVM network. We really create something new. And that's quite challenging, of course, because we have to do a lot of things ourselves. And we have to because we create a really unique layer one in that sense, because it's for data infrastructure and AI purposes. But beyond that, like we are really looking for enterprise use cases to onboard and do cool things with them. So I think from a more business development perspective, our most important milestone will be onboarding the first enterprise.
Okay. And what are the kind of enterprises you're looking at?
Yeah, cool question actually. So we have right now we have focus in automotive.
Okay.
Automotive because we just know the industry quite well. We have a good network there. But truth be told, automotive is not an easy industry.
Yeah,
It's
I would
slow.
think it's very, very niche, right? And they're probably a little resistive to change.
Yeah, exactly. They're slow to innovate. They innovate on car models maybe, but internally, like not so much. And when it comes to data infrastructure, data solutions, they really have we have a fierce automotive specific competitor, Cortina X,
Okay.
which is embedded really deeply in the automotive industry. But our most promising focuses are in agriculture, like mainly IoT devices that collect data
Right.
on a day-to-day basis by how far farmers do harvest and stuff like that, use the tractors, that data is actually very valuable. And we can help in a way that farmers are actually fairly rewarded for generating and making this data available. And our second focus is government, because
Okay.
more and more governments are working on open data initiatives where
Right.
citizens download data from whatever, but that's still very all over the place, very unorganized, and we can very easily and cheaply provide a layer on top that doesn't require big investment, doesn't require any changes on their existing infrastructure, but will solve a lot of problems that will definitely help governments to work more efficiently and even to allow easily to integrate custom LLMs on their government data, which then allows, for example, a municipality, or how do you call it, city that can use an LLM for day-to-day use on top of their data, where they can avoid hallucinations, so they can trust and verify that the right data was used in the answer of the LLM, which could lead to way more efficient work inside of governments, which I think we can all agree that many governments could work a little bit more efficient.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, and data is the backbone there if they want to like speed up or be more efficient. So I can totally concur with you there. Can you tell us a little and shed a little more light on the kind of challenges, you faced so far while pushing your testnet out? Because, you came from perhaps a tech, background, and now moving into Web3 and, this new way of doing things, and you're targeting niches that are perhaps resistant to change. You must have faced some challenges. If we could shed some light on those, it would be great.
Yes and no. I think we can layer this into different kind of challenges and different